Check, check. What happened here? Did I lose my ears? There, check, check.
Good morning, everyone. Hope everybody's doing okay this morning. We're going to get started with our first song, Sunshine in My Soul. And this is a beautiful day outside, I'll just have to say that. So hopefully this continues throughout the rest of the day, and just recognize our mothers and make sure you say Happy Mother's Day and thank you to your mom if you can. All right, Sunshine in My Soul. There is sunshine in my soul today, more glorious and bright than glows in any earthly sky. For Jesus is my light. Oh, there's sunshine, blessed sunshine, when the peaceful, happy moments roll. When Jesus shows his smiling face, there is sunshine in my soul. There is music in my soul today, a carol to my King. And Jesus listening can hear the songs I cannot sing. Oh, the sunshine, blessed sunshine, when the peaceful, happy moments roll. When Jesus shows his smiling face, there is sunshine in my soul. There is springtime in my soul today. Oh, when the Lord is near, the dove of peace sings in my heart, the flowers of grace appear. Oh, there's sunshine, blessed sunshine, when the peaceful, happy moments roll. When Jesus shows his smiling face, there is sunshine in my soul. There is gladness in my soul today, and hope and praise and love, for blessings which he gives me now, for joys that up above. Oh, the sunshine, blessed sunshine, when the peaceful, happy moments roll. When Jesus shows his smiling face, there is sunshine in my soul. Amen. Again, I just want to pause and just remind everybody to thank your mothers today. And we've just got so many influences in our lives, and our hopefully our mothers and fathers are a big part of that. And we'll just open with a word of prayer this morning. Heavenly Father, Lord, I come to you this morning just asking forgiveness of my sins and ways that I fail you, Lord. We love you. We praise you. We thank you for all the blessings you've given us, Lord, and just for watching over us during this time. Continue to be with the leaders as they make decisions that are affecting each and every one of us on a day-to-day basis, Lord. Just give them the wisdom. Give us, as the flock here in Alvin and the many others around, just the patience to understand there's a method to the madness, to rolling things back out and just be patient with each other. We're not all going to be on the same timeline as far as what we think is right or what needs to be done. And I just pray that you would give each and every one of us patience as we manage through this together. We do want to just thank you for moms today. Obviously, without moms, none of us would be here. Like I said earlier, there's a lot of influences in our life, and hopefully the mother and the father, the home life is our best influence and can direct us and raise us the right way and hopefully raise us in your word, Lord. Again, we love you, praise you, just ask that you'd watch over all that we do here this morning, and that you would get the glory and the honor from it. And I ask all this in your son's precious name. Amen.
Good morning. It is good to be able to come and worship this morning. I'm excited about the opportunity that we have to come together and study God's Word, and especially today, take a few minutes to reflect on mothers. Now, for this next little segment, we asked our different mothers our different people in the church to submit a short video about their mother, what their mother means to them, why they love their mother. Some just say Happy Mother's Day, and I think that you're going to like the results. So we'll go ahead and play that now. Okay, we are going to... It's loading. Okay, so while we wait on the video to load, let me give you a couple of announcements. First, of course, we are planning to resume services the first Sunday in June. I know that everybody would love to be able to do it sooner, but the only thing I would love to be able to do then sooner is safely. And as if you've been watching the Brazoria County numbers, they continue to rise instead of fall. And so prayerfully, we will see that start to abate so that we don't have to worry about some of the really draconian measures. If you would like to give online this morning, then you can do that at alvinmbc.com/give. We look forward to worshiping God by returning a portion of what he's given to us, or you can mail something to 2102 West Lang Street, Lang, Alvin, Texas, 77511. Continue, of course, to watch over our daily devotional, Monday through Friday, 2020nt.com. We will be almost finishing the book of Acts this week, so that's an exciting opportunity that we have. And if you have a prayer request, post those in the chat or email them to us. If you go to the website, alvinmbc.com, and click Need Prayer, you can submit prayer requests on there. The last thing I want to say is please like and share this video. That helps Facebook to decide, or YouTube to decide, that we are important, and to show it to other people. So press that like button, press that share button, tag your mom and tell her Happy Mother's Day, especially if you were involved in the video, which we are going to play now.
Mother's Day 2020. Well, I guess I can tell you that my mom is very special, and the two things that I can say about her: she taught me how to love unconditionally, and she is my moral code. If I'm ever in a quandary about something, I ask two questions. What would Jesus do, or what would Mom think? Either way, I'm usually guided in the right direction. Thanks for everything, Mom. We love you.
Hey, so what do you love about your mom?
I love give her a hug and kiss because her the best for me.
Mother's Day, Mom. Thank you for always loving us.
Encouraging us and supporting us. We love you.
Two reasons I love my mom is because she's always there for me and she goes to all my games.
Mom taught me to live sacrificing for people smaller than you because that's how she lived.
My mom is the funniest and sweetest person I know.
I love that Mommy, you're pretty, and that she takes care of me.
Say Happy Mother's Day.
Happy Mother's Day!
Happy Mother's Day, Gail Bryant. I love you because you've always inspired me to be more like Christ. And the inspiration has come by the example that you've lived in front of us to always put God first in everything that you do. I love you, Mom.
I love my mom because she's easy to talk to, and when I look up from the floor that I'm competing on into the stands, she's right there cheering me on, and it makes me feel good. I love you, Mom.
Hey, Mom. Thank you for always being there.
And we don't know what we would do without you.
Happy Mother's Day.
Mother's Day is the perfect time to reflect on what you mean to me. And I am grateful that we've gone through so much together, and that we've learned so many lessons, and that you've helped me become the person that I am. I love you, Mom. Happy Mother's Day.
Happy Mother's Day. We'd just like to say thank you to our mom for helping us become the men we have become today. Thank you.
My mom is very important to me, and I have no idea what I would do without her.
And my mom, or our mom, has always been someone that I can talk to and trust.
My name is Shelby Bryant. My mommy's name is Michelle Bryant. And I love her because she gives me hugs.
I don't have a picture of Grandma Judy, but She knows who we are. We love you and miss you.
I love my mom because she's such a strong-willed, brilliant, and empowering woman that I love and look up to very much.
Happy Mother's Day, Shirley Huff. I love you, Mom. You're the best. You're always there for me.
For my whole life, my mom has shown me what it looks like when someone always puts other people first. I love you, Mom. Happy Mother's Day.
My mom has all the knowledge to fix any laundry mishaps. She is home, she is love, she is safety, and always a comfortable lap to sleep on.
Hey, who is this in this picture? Who's standing next to Dada?
Mama.
Mama. Do you love Mama so much?
Dada.
Say Happy Mother's Day.
Happy Mother's Day, Mom. Hope you have a good day. Love you, and have a good day.
Hi, Mom. Wanted to let you know how much I really love you and how much I enjoy our late night 3-hour talks. Wouldn't miss it for the world. Happy Mother's Day.
Just want to say how blessed we are to have my mother here living with us. I love her so much.
I love my mom because she goes above and beyond for me and my family, and well, she's my mom.
I love my mom because she takes care of us and she's always there at our sporting events.
Hi, my mom is Ivory Streeter. I just wanted to say, Happy Mother's Day, Mom. I'm truly blessed to be able to call you my mother. Love you.
Hi, Mom. Just want to tell you Happy Mother's Day, and I love you. And Happy Mother's Day to Mamaw, too, and all the other mothers out there. Happy Mother's Day.
Who is that?
The mama.
Yeah, you want to show me your mama?
Mama.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you love Mama?
Yeah.
Yeah? Can you say, I love you?
Like.
Can you say, I love you?
Uh-oh.
To me, my mom is an unshakable place to turn to when I have a problem. So when I became a Christian, I had no trouble accepting that God is my refuge because I'd seen it modeled for me my whole life. Love you, Mom.
Mother's Day to my mother-in-law, Doris. I just want you to know how much I love you and how happy I am that you're here with us. And I just want to say thank you for everything that you do for me and let you know how special you are to me, and make sure that on this day that you know how much you're loved. Happy Mother's Day.
Hi, Doris. You are the best mother-in-law in the whole world, and I mean it.
And we really are going to miss you on Mother's Day. Hope to see you soon, and happy
Mother's Day. We love you.
Happy Mother's Day, Mom. Thank you for showing me what love looks like every day.
Happy Mother's Day, Mother. I think of you every single day and miss you every day. And you're a big inspiration to me. I just thank you for all you did for me, taking care of me and loving me. Happy Mother's Day. See you soon. Bye.
Well, I hope that that encouraged you and blessed your heart this morning. At this time, our musicians are going to come forward and lead us in some more music to continue worshiping our Lord. I want to thank everybody that took the time to take those videos and send those in, and I want to wish everybody a very happy Mother's Day.
Majesty, worship his majesty. Unto Jesus be all glory, honor, and praise. Majesty, kingdom, authority, love, his anthems raise. So exalt, lift up on high the name of Jesus. Magnify, come glorify Christ Jesus the King. Majesty, worship his majesty. Jesus who died, now glorified, King of all kings. Majesty, worship his majesty. Unto Jesus be all glory, honor, and praise. Majesty, kingdom, authority, flow from his throne unto his own, his anthems raise. So exalt, lift up on high the name of Jesus. Magnify, come glorify Christ Jesus the King. Majesty, worship his majesty. Jesus who died, now glorified, King of all kings. Amen. Worthy is the Lamb who was slain. Holy, holy is he. Sing a new song to him who sits on heaven's mercy seat. Worthy is the Lamb who was slain. Holy, holy is he. Sing a new song to him who sits on heaven's mercy seat. Holy, holy, holy is the Lord God Almighty, who was and is to come. With all creation I sing praise to the King of Kings. You are my everything, and I will adore you. I will adore you. Clothed in rainbows of living color, flash of lightning, rolls of thunder. Blessing and honor, strength and glory and power be to you, the only wise King. Yeah. Holy, holy, holy is the Lord God Almighty, who was and is to come. With all creation I sing praise to the King of Kings. You are my everything, and I will adore you. I will adore you. wonder, awestruck wonder, at the mention of your name. Jesus, your name is power, breath and living water, such a marvelous mystery. Yeah, holy, holy, holy is the Lord God Almighty, who was and is to come. With all creation I sing praise to the King of Kings. You are my everything, and I will adore you. We will adore you. Filled with wonder, awestruck wonder, at the mention of your name. Heavenly Father, Lord, we come to you again just asking forgiveness of my sins and the ways that I fail you, Lord. We love you. We praise you. Again, just thank you for all those wonderful things that were talked about from our moms, and I know there's many others out there that have similar feelings, Lord, and we just, again, thank you for them. I lift up Brother Justin to you this morning, just ask that you would give him the words you would have for us, that everything we would do would bring you honor and glory. And we love you, we praise you. Ask this in your Son's precious name. Amen.
Thank you, Praise Band. It is a blessing to be here this morning. Open up your Bibles, if you would, to the book of Philippians, chapter 2, verse 1. Philippians, chapter 2, verse 1. We're talking this morning about the way that we ought to think. You know, the proper thinking is something that people tend to struggle with. You know, a lot of our problems are caused mentally, internally, and the solution to many of our problems is not a change in our circumstances, but a change in our mindset. Let's see what that looks like this morning in Philippians chapter 2. If you're able, would you stand with me in honor of the reading of God's word? He says, "If there be therefore any consolation in Christ, if any comfort of love, if any fellowship of the Spirit, if any bowels and mercies, fulfill ye my joy, that ye be like-minded, having the same love, being of one accord, of one mind. Let nothing be done through strife or vain glory, but in lowliness of mind let each esteem other better than themselves. Look not every man on his own things, but every man also on the things of others. Let this mind be in you, which was also in Christ Jesus, who, being in the form of God, thought it not robbery to be equal with God, but made himself of no reputation, and took upon him the form of a servant, and was made in the likeness of men. And being found in fashion as a man, he humbled himself, and became obedient unto death, even the death of the cross. Wherefore God also hath highly exalted him, and given him a name which is above every name, that at the name of Jesus every knee should bow, of things in heaven and things in earth and things under the earth, and that every tongue should confess that Jesus Christ is Lord, to the glory of God the Father." And the people said, amen. You may be seated. The picture that we have here is the way that Jesus thinks. The picture that we have here is the way that we ought to think. He says, let this mind be in you. Let this mindset, let this worldview, let this way of thinking be in you that was also in Christ Jesus. How did Jesus think? You know, we ask a lot of times, what would Jesus do? You know, you won't do what Jesus did until you think how Jesus thinks. Our big idea this morning is think like Jesus. When we think about the many decisions we have to make in life, there are some decisions that the answers are pretty simple for. There are some decisions that we can open up the Bible and we can look at the scripture and we can say, okay, I need to do this in this situation because blank. But there are a lot more situations that don't have a direct scriptural answer. There are a lot of situations that we face that require what's called wisdom. Wisdom is the art or the skill of living wealth. Wisdom is the ability which we need to have so that we can live the way that God would have us to live. Wisdom is that skill of making the right choices. Now, the Bible says, if anyone lacks wisdom, let him ask of God. God gives to everyone liberally and doesn't upbraid or doesn't find fault. And if you want wisdom, wisdom comes from God. Now, why is that? Well, I think that the answer is actually pretty straightforward. If we are trying to make a decision, there are a lot of factors in a good decision that we are not able to know about. If I'm trying to decide, should I take this job? Well, if that company is going to fold up in a year and I don't know that, and I leave something steady for something unstable, and I make a decision based on my own understanding, then I might miss out on something that God knows about. We read about that in the book of Joshua. The Israelites come into the land, and this group of people called the Gibeonites come to them, and they say, won't you make a treaty with us? We've come a long way. Look how moldy our bread is. Look how worn out our clothes are. Now, of course, it was all an elaborate ruse that they lived very close by, and they got the Israelites to swear to protect them and not to go to war with them so that they could be protected. Now, the Bible says the problem was they did not consult the Lord. In the same way, when we're trying to make decisions, big decisions, small decisions, medium decisions, we have to have minds that have been reshaped to think like Jesus thought and think like Jesus thinks. He says, look, let this mind be in you. Have the same mindset, have the same worldview, have the same point of view that Jesus did. Now, the problem for us with that is that a worldview, a mindset like Jesus has, is not going to fit in with any human mindset. You're not going to be able to fit in precisely with any school of thought and be faithful to Jesus. There's no room for that kind of overlap. In some ways, following Jesus is going to force us to think differently than some people, and we might agree with other people. And then on different issues, it might be reversed. That when we think like Jesus, we have to break the mold. And the fundamental attitude, the fundamental posture of thinking like Jesus is this posture of humility, this posture of love. I'm going to tell you a little bit about Philippi. I told you last week that Philippi had been the site of at least two major wars. The Liberators' War after the death of Caesar. Remember that Brutus, Caesar's close personal friend, and a whole mob of conspirators in the Senate came behind Caesar and stabbed him in the back. And after Caesar had died, Brutus and some others led a rebellion to try to restore the republic, try to eliminate the position of emperor and bring Rome back to its former glory. But it was outside Philippi that the second triumvirate hunted them down and defeated them. They were led by Octavian, whose name would later be, he would change his own name to Augustus because he thought he was so majestic and august that he deserved a title to match. And he named the month of August after himself. Also, again, quite a humble man. Augustus, or Octavian, was so known for his cruelty that Brutus killed himself rather than fall into the hands of the Caesar. He killed himself just outside Philippi. So you have all these soldiers that have won this battle, and they need land. In the ancient Rome, the way that the military was composed was different than here. In ancient Rome, the upper classes comprised the military, and lower classes, people who didn't own some property, were not allowed to serve. You had to have certain rights to be able to serve in the military. Eventually, though, Rome grew so big and their military grew so bloated, there weren't enough upper-class people to make the military they needed anymore. And so they started giving the land of their conquered territories to the soldiers a very early GI Bill to sort of after the fact ratify them. Oh, look, they are landowners because we just gave them this land of the territory they conquered. So you come to Philippi. This battle is accomplished at Philippi. All these soldiers need a place to stay. They need land. And so Philippi became a military community, and this former capital of the Macedonian Empire, the Greek Empire, instead becomes a Roman city. And the people that lived there, the soldiers and others, had Roman citizenship, a very special thing. Only a handful of people had Roman citizenship. In fact, only about 10% of people who lived in the Roman Empire were full Roman citizens. 90% of people had some partial citizenship or none at all. In fact, about a third of Romans in Paul's day were slaves. 1 out of every 3 people in the empire were slaves, and only 1 out of every 10 had full citizenship. Many could vote but not be elected, and things like that. They had these very complicated layers of citizenship. And so, if you were a citizen, wow, you were really somebody. People would spend enormous amounts of money to become citizens. The kind of what we would call the knight class would work very, very hard to make enough money to buy their way into citizenship. Because once you were a citizen, your kids were citizens, and you had all kinds of perks. One of the biggest ones was that you couldn't be beaten, you couldn't be crucified, you had to be treated with dignity, you had the right to appeal a sentence to Caesar, which is exactly what we see Paul doing in the book of Acts if you're reading through 2020nt.com. A status was a big deal in the Roman Empire, and you wouldn't give up your status. Your status was a very important part about who you were, and you knew it too. So when somebody was a lower class than you treated them like they were lower class than you. You treated them like they existed to serve you. Now, in our society today, almost everybody is a citizen in the United States, but, and so that's not the basis of the classes that we think about. And yet, we are very concerned, like every civilization in all of history, with our station and our class, and how do we compare to others? What are my rights? What do I deserve? But the mind of Jesus, and this is huge, the mind of Jesus is, I don't think about what I deserve. I don't think about what's best for me. I think about what's best for you. And friends, we read last week that we are supposed to live not like citizens of the United States, not like citizens of North America, not like citizens of Earth. But if you've been born again, if you're a Christian, then you ought to live like a citizen in heaven who's a temporary resident here, a temporary ambassador here. Because you don't get to stay here. This is not your final home. In a million years, there will be no Alvin. There'll be no Brazoria County. There'll be no Texas. Perish the thought. There'll be no United States. These things will vanish away. But our citizenship in the city that has foundations, whose builder and maker is God, is what Hebrews 11 says, shall remain. So if we're going to live like citizens of heaven, then the social classes and the political classes and the economic classes of this life cannot be boundaries that divide us. The question can never be for us, who is here to serve me? The question must always be, who can I serve? To see that more fully, let's look back in Philippians chapter 2, verse 1. He gives this kind of fourfold if statement. And this is called first-class conditional, which just means that he says if, but he really means since. So he says, if there be, therefore, any consolation in Christ, if any comfort of love, if any fellowship of the Spirit, if any bowels and mercies. So what he means is, since we have encouragement and strength in Jesus, since his love comforts us, since in the Holy Spirit we have fellowship with each other and mercy and compassion on each other, because the love of God has come down to us and changed our relationship not only with God, but with each other. Since that's the case, how then shall we live? So he says, if all these things are true, and they are, verse 2, then fulfill ye my joy. Because if these things are true, then make my joy full. Now remember, Philippians is the book of joy. Philippians is the book that tells us that our joy is not founded in our temporary circumstances, that our joy is founded in the work of Jesus. I'm sorry, I'm seeing on my screen the volume keeps pegging out. I'm getting full red on there. Chris, can you look at the computer, please? Thank you. When we think about this joy, we're thinking about something where Paul in prison, Paul far away from everybody else, can say, I've got joy. Thank you. He says, I've got joy that allows me to look beyond and over my circumstances. So what gives Paul joy? You know, we say, I'd just be so happy if I could get out of this jail cell. I'd just be so happy if I weren't in quarantine anymore. I'd just be so happy if I got this new job. Paul says, do you want to know what would give me joy? You want to know what would make my joy full? What would make my joy complete? He says, it would be if I could look at your church and you were like-minded, having the same love, being of one accord, of one mind. So he gave that kind of fourfold if statement, and now he gives a fourfold then statement. He says, I want you to be like-minded. I want you to have one mindset. I want you to think like Jesus thinks, having the same love. He says, I want you to love like Jesus loves, being of one accord, being united, marching forward together of one mind. Again, this kind of repetitive with like-minded. The mind of the Holy Spirit that makes our mind like the mind of Christ. Fulfill ye my joy. Is I want you to change the way you think. Look, he's going to spell it out more. He says in verse 3, let nothing be done through strife or vainglory. Okay? He says, don't do anything out of ambition or out of conceit. Don't make any decisions by, well, this is going to get me ahead. Don't make any decisions by, this is going to make me look good. But in lowliness of mind, let each esteem other better than themselves. It says, in humility, let everybody treat others as better than themselves. Now, what does that mean? Better than themselves. Does that mean that Brother Gary, when I come and say, Brother Gary, I need to sing a special, that he needs to treat me as a better singer than he is? That would not be correct. Does it mean that when I am going to the mechanic, getting my car fixed, that if I have some ideas about what they ought to do to fix my car, that the mechanic ought to say, you know, I'm going to treat you like you're a better mechanic than I am. It's not a good idea either. If I go to the doctor, and the doctor says, you know, I think that this is the diagnosis that you have, and take these 2 pills and you'll be better in a week, and I say, well, doctor, I've been on WebMD, and I think that I actually have spinal cancer. Should the doctor treat me like I'm a better doctor than he is? Of course not. That's not what Paul's saying here. You know, it's true that there are differences between us, that there are some people who are smarter, some who are faster, some who are stronger, some who are gifted in different areas. When he talks about being better, he's talking about class again. That word better, you know, if you read, I don't know, Jane Austen or something, you know, they talk about people showing respect to their betters. That doesn't mean somebody who's better at different things. It means somebody who's a higher class. So Paul says, don't worry about your citizenship. Don't worry that all these people around you are slaves and that you're in this elevated echelon. Don't worry about your wealth or the privilege that gives you. He says, treat other people like they are the higher class and that it is your role to serve them, not the other way around. Now, this is a big deal because we live in a culture that has got the biggest entitlement complex in history, I think. You want to see a group of entitled people, and I can show you one wherever you want to go. We have people that their biggest concern is, what do I get? What's in it for me? And if something doesn't affect me, that's not my problem. That's their problem. They worry about it. You know, it's not really a generational issue. You know, we're better at seeing it in other generations, but it's pervasive in American society. that everybody worries about what they are entitled to. You know, I'm entitled to go to Chick-fil-A and not have to wait in line for a long time, and if I don't get what I'm entitled to, if I don't get my right, then I get mad. I'm entitled to have things go my way. I'm entitled, we have this attitude that the whole world exists to serve us. And if you want to find out if that's true about you or not, see what things, when you don't get them, do you get irritated. Now, if I feel like everything I get's a blessing and I don't deserve anything except the wrath of God, then I'm not going to feel, I'm not going to say, I can't believe that waitress hasn't been by in 6 minutes. Because I don't deserve for anybody to come by at all. My attitude reveals that I think that I'm the king and everybody is here to serve me, and everything that happens is here to serve me. Paul says, don't do that. I think everything's to make me look better. I think that I'm the picture and the world is the frame. Paul says, don't let anything be done by strife or vainglory, for conceit or pride. He says, but humbly treat other people like you're the slave and they're the citizen. Don't think about what's in it for me. Don't think about what I get. Think about what can I do. Now that is a tough passage. It is a helpful day to think about Mother's Day, though, isn't it? When you think about somebody who's a good mother, a good parent generally, but for Mother's Day, what does a good mother do? Well, she puts her children's interests ahead of her own. And out of love, humbly lets the things that are best for her children come first. That's the mind of Christ. That's the way that Jesus thought. That's going to affect everything in your life. That's going to affect your ability to live with wisdom if you think like that, if I think like that. If I look at life and I'm trying to decide how to vote, and my question in how to vote is, what's going to make my situation best in 6 months or a year or whatever it may be, then I'm going to look for who's going to give me what I think I'm entitled to, who's going to give me what I think I deserve. If my question is, how can I best serve others, then my whole point of view might be quite different. If I am thinking about how to behave at work, and I've got a couple of different ways I can handle a situation. I can do the things that are going to bring me the most glory, do the things that are going to get me recognized, do the things that are going to get me exalted, or I can point to others. Then I'm going to have to make a decision about whether or not I'm going to think like Jesus. As a parent, if I go home and I'm tired and I'm worn out and my kids come and say, don't you want to play with me? I've got to make a decision in that moment about whether I'm going to put my interests first or the interests of others first. And none of us do this perfectly, do we? There's only one who did this perfectly, and of course that's the one that we're reading about. He says, don't live like that. He says, let nothing be done through strife or vainglory. But in lowliness of mind, let everyone treat others better than themselves, as a better station. My purpose in life is not for you to serve me. My purpose in life is to serve you. What a radical shift in our mindset. What a radical shift in the way that we think about life itself, to decide, I don't exist for me. I don't exist to amass as much as I can for myself. I exist for you. How differently would we live in society? How different would our families be? How different would our political dialogue be? How different would our work be? You can get down and gritty with this, right? When you're driving in traffic and somebody cuts you off, do you think like Jesus? Or do you think, that was my spot? You think, I can't believe they think they're more important than I am. What if in your mind already you said, that person's more important than I am? They have every right to go ahead. That's a shift, huh? You know, the whole worldview that we have has to be fundamentally reshaped. When we look, and I'll get down in the grime of everyday life here. When we look at the COVID-19 situation, that I see some people, looking at some of those who have lost their jobs and say, well, they just have to deal with it for the sake of society, for the sake of people's health, or whatever it may be. And I want to say to those people that you have a responsibility to be concerned with others, to say those people's rights are important, those people's privileges are important, I exist to serve them. On the other hand, of course, you see some people saying to those who are sick, well, they just need to take care of themselves. They look out for themselves, and I'll look out for me. And I'm not going to be concerned about them. They just need to stay home and let me live my life the way I want to live my life. And I want to say that too contradicts the mind of Christ. If you think that your life is about you, if I think that my life is about me, and let's be honest, we all do at our nature. That's the human, sinful, fallen nature, me, myself, and I, the unholy trinity. If we think in that way, then we will always be looking at how things affect us and not be concerned about others. And that's wrong, that's wrong, that's wrong, that's wrong. That doesn't provide any neat solutions to the problems that we face. I'm not saying that I have a policy proposal up here that now I'm going to distribute. What I am saying is that the Bible tells us how we ought to think. And we ought to think like Jesus. And I'm so grateful that Jesus didn't think about what affected him the most, that he thought about us. While we were yet sinners, while we were his enemies, he put our interests ahead of his own. He says, don't live by strife or vainglory, but think like Jesus. And that's, when he talks about being of one mind, he means that our one mind is putting other people first. Now, there's a very practical church example here, right? Some people prefer hymns and traditional music. Some people prefer contemporary music. Do you know what a healthy church ought to look like? The people who like hymns better ought to be saying, Brother Gary, Brother John, we ought to sing more contemporary songs for the people who like those. And the people who like contemporary songs better ought to be saying, Brother Gary, Brother John, we ought to be singing more hymns for the people who like those. The question should not be, what do I like? What's my preference? The preference ought to be, for the glory of Christ, how can I lay down my opinions? How can I lay down my preferences to see the lost saved, to see my brother encouraged? How can I lay down me? Say, Justin, you don't care about my opinion. No, I don't. I care about the mind of Christ. I don't care about my opinion either. You see, of course, there's a little bit of tongue-in-cheek when I say I don't care. We have preferences. We have things we like, and I care about your opinion to the extent it lets me serve you. But let me tell you that Christian maturity is when I care more about what will bring glory to God than about my preference. You heard me say this every church business meeting we've ever had. If you come there and you vote based on what you think, then I wish you had stayed at home instead of polluting our assembly with your sinful filth. Pretty strong language. But let me say it again. When we come together in a church business meeting, it's not a democracy. It's not a here's what I think is best and the thing that most people like the most gets done. When we come together in a church business meeting, we come together as priests of the Most High God. And my question is not, what do you think? My question is, as you've prayed about this, what has God led you to say? There's not always a scriptural answer, right? That's why we've got to have wisdom. But wisdom comes from the mind of Christ. Wisdom comes from humility. So in a church setting, in a family setting, in a work setting, in a political setting, my question must always be, every single time, what would I do if I had the mind of Christ? What would I do if I believed that others were more worthy, were a higher station than myself? What would I do if love motivated me more than pride? What would I do if I didn't care what happened to me because my whole heart was bound up in you? So he says in verse 4, Look not every man on his own things, but every man also on the things of others. He says, don't look after yourself. And of course, it means don't just look after yourself. Don't just look after what's going to be your best interest. Don't just look after the things that are going to affect you, but also look on the things of others. This is so hard for us because a problem that affects us, we feel so much more poignantly than we feel problems that don't affect us. If I have a toothache, it's kind of the classic example, it's this all-consuming thing. My toothache is a very minor problem, but it seems pretty major to me. It affects me. It's real to me. And if I see a problem affect somebody else that doesn't affect me, let's say I'm not a barber, and so this doesn't affect me, the barber shop's being closed. If it doesn't concern me, then I am tempted in my sinful nature to say, well, I'm not going to think about that. That's not my problem. They can look after that. But Jesus says, no, don't just look after your own things. Look after the things of others. If I say, well, I'm not immunocompromised. I'm healthy. I'm young. My kids are young. We're all healthy. I don't care about, them. They can worry about themselves. The Bible says, no. Don't just look after your own things, but look after the things of others. So, of course, a very poignant example in the news this week is that I'm not an African-American man that has to worry about being killed going for a run. But that doesn't mean that just because it doesn't affect me, it shouldn't be my concern. Everything in our lives, we've got to stop and step back and think, what is the loving response? And we could go on, we could multiply examples, couldn't we? To say, I am grateful for the privileges that I have, but ultimately I cannot be primarily concerned about my rights, the station that I have because of who I am. Instead, I must be concerned about others. I cannot just look on my own things. I must look on the things of others. I have to think like Jesus. He says in verse 5, let this mind be in you, which was also in Christ Jesus. Think like Jesus. Who? How did he think? This is a poem. Being in the form of God, thought it not robbery to be equal with God. Jesus, being in the form, that word form means same substance, same essence, that he was truly God. He, being truly God, did not count it robbery, didn't think it as something to take advantage of, something to cling tight to be equal with God in station. He was better in class, in substance, but in position, he didn't think of his position as something to be exploited. What did he do? Who, being in the form of God, thought it not robbery to be equal with God, but made himself of no reputation. He gave up his class, he gave up his position, and took upon him the form of a servant, and was made in the likeness of men. Jesus, eternally God, sitting in the halls of heaven, knew that you and I had a problem. Our problem was our sin. Now, there are a couple of things that we can imagine that God could have thought if God were like us. First thing, of course, not my problem. Let them worry about themselves. The second thing, perhaps even more poignant, is not only is it not my problem, they got into this mess themselves. Now let them deal with it. We weren't suffering for no reason. We were suffering because we were sinners, because we were the enemies of God. Is that how Jesus responded? No, of course not. How did Jesus respond? He humbled himself. He who had the name above every name laid it aside and instead took on the name of Yeshua of Nazareth, carpenter's son. He took upon himself the form, so he is in the form of God, the essence of God, and he also became the essence of servant. Really, that word servant is doulos, slave. He, although he was fundamentally God, became fundamentally a slave. Although he deserved for our knees to bow and serve him, yet he became a slave of his enemies, Imagine any king doing that. Now, can you imagine Donald Trump going to Nancy Pelosi's house and saying, I'd really like to clean your bathrooms for you? Not going to happen, right? Or vice versa. We don't serve our enemies. We oppose our enemies. We grandstand against them. We talk about how they are in the way of us getting what we deserve. But Paul says, if you want to think like Jesus, Jesus left the halls of heaven to become a slave, to be made in the likeness of men, 100% God and 100% man. He didn't consider equality with God. He didn't consider his station a tool, something to be held on to at all costs. He didn't consider his rights and his privileges and what was his something to be concerned with. He didn't say, what's going to best affect me? He looked at us, his enemies, his undeserving, sinful rebels, and he said, what will be best for them is for me to go through hell on their behalf. He was made in the likeness of men, and being found in fashion as a man, he humbled himself even more and became obedient unto death, even the death of the cross. He who deserved all the honor and all the praise and all the glory humbled himself until he was crucified. What's the humility of crucifixion? Well, if you were a Roman citizen, remember the Philippians, many of them had their Roman citizenship. One of the perks of being a Roman citizen was that you could not be crucified. It was too cruel. Caesar's son, of course, couldn't be crucified. The Son of God, by right, had the authority, in every possible sense, to reject the death of crucifixion. And yet, he chose it. He became obedient to death, even the death of the cross. He humbled himself. He didn't say, this is my station, this is my rights, this is what I deserve. Instead, he replaced honor with shame. He who is rich became poor so that through his poverty you might become rich. The cross, the crucifixion, was painful, of course, but the real point of crucifixion was the mockery, it was the shame. Imagine they put the cross outside the city, saying, we reject you. And they put it at the crossroads of these streets. And they put Jesus on a cross. As I've told you before, he's not lifted 5 feet up in the air like you see on the art pictures. He's lifted with his feet just above the ground because they want him close enough for people to spit on him. They strip his clothes away. They hang him naked on the cross. Shame. And as he's hung naked on the cross, you remember they put a sign over his head that says, King of the Jews. And they come by and mock him. And he cries out, Eli, Eli, lama sabachthani. That in that moment, he says, my God, why have you forsaken me? Because Jesus came down, he who had all the honor and all the glory, he who is God himself, very God, became very man, and died on the cross. He took the punishment that you and I deserved. And he said, I am totally separated from my Father. What I deserve for my sin, Jesus endured for my sin. On the cross, he said, my God, you've forsaken me. All the wrath of God for all the sins of all of mankind for all of time were poured out on the Son. And when he was going through that, they said, oh, look, he's calling for Elijah. Let Elijah save him. They mocked him. They spat on him, they whipped him. Before they crucified him, they put a purple robe on him. They put a crown of thorns on his head. They said, they took a reed and they beat him with it like it was his scepter and said, Hail, King of the Jews. He took on all the shame and all the agony that we deserved. He came down low. And so, friend, if Christ came down low, he came from the very halls of heaven to the very depths of the grave, then how can we call ourselves Christians? How can we say that we belong to him and try to exalt ourselves, try to lift ourselves up, try to say, what's in it for me? We can't. It is incoherent. You can't say that doesn't affect me, it's not my problem, because the only reason that we have any hope is that God came down into a mess that was not his problem and gave his life to fix it. God came down into a mess we had gotten ourselves into and gave his life to fix it. He gave up his honor, he gave up his glory, and he took on himself shame. And the thing fixed in his mind was our redemption. He humbled himself and became obedient unto death, even death on a cross. Verse 9, though, says, "Wherefore God also hath highly exalted him, and given him a name which is above every name." Of course, we know that Jesus was on the cross. He died in our place, and on the third day he rose again because it was finished, that the cost of our sin, the shame we deserved for our rebellion, had been fully paid. And with it fully paid, he was raised up again and exalted again, and given that position of honor, given that status that he had laid aside. The name, the reputation, that's what a name is, it's who you are, the name that is above every name. That at the name of Jesus, every knee should bow, of things in heaven and things on earth and things under the earth, and that every tongue should confess that Jesus Christ is Lord, to the glory of God the Father. Everyone comes because Jesus, think about this. This is an incredible picture. Jesus bowed his knee for us. He humbled himself. He went down for us. And as a consequence, when he comes back up again, now every knee bows. Everyone must serve him. Every tongue must confess who he is. Heaven, hell, and in between. Heaven, earth, under the earth. The path to exaltation, the path to greatness, the path to doing something that matters is humility. The only way up is down. If you want to live in a way that you'll have significance, you want to live in a way to have real position, the question is not to say, what do I have to do to be respected? The question is to say, what do I have to do to be respectable? God gave up what was rightfully his. Jesus came down and he died in your place and mine. He put our interests ahead of his own. He didn't think about himself, but he thought about others. And when he did that, of course, God still cared for him, exalted him back up, and the harmony and the holiness of the Trinity was restored. You know, God thinks about you. And you can say, well, if I let them get in this position, if I don't look out for myself, nobody else will. And I want to tell you that that's blasphemy. That I know somebody who looks out for you when you don't look out for yourself, so much that he already gave his life to prove it. If you want to doubt that the Jesus who left heaven, humbled himself to become obedient to the point of death, even death on a cross, if you want to doubt his love and his compassion and his care for you, friend, there's no better evidence that you could have than what he's already given you, that he loves you, that he cares for you. And what you've got to do, what I've got to do, is we have to submit ourselves to that love. You want to know, let's go back to verse 1 on our slides. I don't have it repeated, but you want to know how it's possible for you to have this mindset? He says, if there be any consolation in Christ, if there be any comfort of love, if any fellowship of the Spirit, if any bowels and mercies. Do you want to know how we are able to love one another, to lay ourselves down for one another? Friends, it's only because Jesus already has. Until we have experienced the love of Christ for ourselves directly, until we have experienced the humbling sacrifice of Jesus, we are always going to be arrogant. We're always going to be self-exalting. We are always going to be selfish. But if it ever clicks through our thick skulls that the Son of God gave his life for us, that he went through all the agony and all the torment of all of our sins for us, then we ought to love each other. You know, when we think about a model mother, you're thinking about somebody who has that heart of sacrifice. Some of you did not get the benefit of that. And I want you to know that although you didn't get the benefit of it in your home, that Jesus gives it to you. Some of you had the benefit of that, and maybe I know several of you that are listening, it's your first Mother's Day without your mother here on earth. And I want you to know that your mother was a gift of a good and loving God who cared for you and still cares for you. And that he lays down his rights and his privileges to invite you to be a joint heir with Jesus. Some of you are estranged from your mother, maybe from your children. And while we know that there are many boundaries and many limits and a lot of complexity to this, I think there are a lot of relationships that could be restored if we weren't so concerned with our rights and what we deserved and, well, they owe me an apology. If instead we said, I'm a debtor, a debt that I can never repay because Jesus loved me and died for me, I owe everybody. I'm the slave. I'm the one that's in debt to everyone. I'm the one who must serve others. And if we take that first step, you might be surprised that when you humble yourself, that God exalts you up. Brothers and sisters, if you are a Christian, but you've let yourself get reshaped, and we all do, I say if, but what I actually mean is when that constant pressure, that constant temptation, me, myself, and I, beats and beats and beats and beats and beats on our heart, friend, when we give into that and we start to think me first, and maybe some of the examples that I gave made you mad. Maybe they offended you. You say, well, that's not me. Or you're entitled. I'm not entitled. That, you're a young person. You say those seniors are entitled. They want their Medicare and their Social Security and their stimulus payments on top. Maybe you're an older person. You say these kids are entitled. They want their college paid for. I didn't pay for it. Well, whatever it is that makes you mad, I found your sore spot. I found the thing that you are entitled about. And we've all got that problem. We've all got this tendency to look in instead of looking out. And I want to tell you that the only way to fix that is to reflect on what Jesus has done for us. Finally, if you're not a Christian, as our musicians come, I want to ask you very simply, how has living for yourself worked out for you so far? You're going to have to recognize that Jesus is Lord because he is. But either you do it now or later. And if you do it now, then he offers something for you. He gives you something beyond all comparison. He gives you life. He gives you hope. I want you to recognize that although you and I are sinners, that although you and I deserve God's judgment, that out of his grace, out of his love, out of his mercy, Jesus chose instead to come and die in our place. We deserved shame. We deserved lowliness. He deserved glory. But we switched places. He became poor so that we, through his poverty, might become rich. Friend, if you would trust Jesus as your Savior, if you'd say, Lord, I know that I'm a sinner. I know that I deserve your judgment. I know that I deserve to be shamed, but I believe that you were shamed in my place. Will you forgive me? Will you save me? Then in that very moment, Jesus will lift you up. The only way down is up. This is the thing that makes it so hard for people to be saved, is because it's that humility. It's that recognition that I don't deserve God's love. I just deserve his judgment. Nothing I can do, no number of good deeds can ever change my problem. The only thing that can help me is forgiveness. Lord, will you forgive me? And if you lower yourself in that way, then God raises you up higher than you could ever raise yourself. He, for your sake, made himself of no reputation, became a servant. Will you recognize him now? Will you say, Lord, I know I'm a sinner. I know I deserve your judgment. Will you forgive me? If you will, we're going to sing a hymn. We're going to sing just a verse of a hymn. I'm going to ask everybody to pray, sing with us, pray that God's Spirit would move on your heart. And whatever decision you need to make as we sing, won't you pray? Won't you make it with us?
Have thine own way, Lord, have thine own way. Thou art the potter, I am the clay.
Thank you so much for your kind attention this morning. Happy Mother's Day. We will have our service at 6 o'clock tonight because we're going down to my mother's house. I'm going to pre-record it and premiere it at 6 o'clock, but we'll have our evening service tonight. 7 o'clock on Wednesday, we'll have services as well, so be aware of those. Remember, if you have any prayer requests, anything we can do, please let us know. If this video has been helpful to you, then like and share it so others can see it. And let's get the Word of God out in a midst of a hopeless and broken generation. We're going to pray for those that are grieving this morning. Pray for those that are grieving over a mother that has passed, a mother that you're estranged from, children that you're estranged from, children that have passed. We also want to rejoice and celebrate in the good gifts that God has given so many of us. And so we pray that everyone will have a blessed and safe Mother's Day, and we'll close with a word of prayer, and then we'll be done. Heavenly Father, God, I thank you so much. I thank you for the love that you showed us, for the example of humility and sacrifice that you showed us, that you give us a way to not put ourselves first, a way to break free of the Darwinian struggle of trying to exalt ourselves and instead say, look, if you will lower yourself, then I'll raise you up. Thank you for doing that, for showing us the perfect example when your son Jesus defeated the sin in our hearts by taking it on himself. Father, we thank you for mothers that have lived out this very self-sacrificial portrait, and ask, Father, that you would bless them in a special way today. We ask that you'd comfort those that are grieving, brokenhearted, Father, and we'll give you all the praise and the glory for it. In Jesus' name I pray.